Well, we are in a different setting today.
Yes, we are.
What topic shall we be imparting to the listener, Mrs.
Um,
Joylin?
I feel like today we want to talk about sensitive souls and how we can use spiritual protection as people who are more sensitive to energy and things like that. So, yeah,
Yeah, so spiritual protection. It's we've I think we've spoken a bit about it in
a
the
little bit.
past
Yeah.
on my own channel, the Marvelous Mind, uh, which we did cover quite a fair bit. It did quite reasonably well, and I suppose we'll use this sort of as a continuation on that to sort of develop some of these important themes of spiritual protection, protecting one's own frequency. How do we relate to more challenging frequencies? Um, yeah,
Dynamics and
and I
things like
think
that. Yeah.
I think I want to sort of you know provide a kind of exploration which will enable people to notice when their frequency, their energy is being tarnished or sucked away from them. What they can do in response to that? How can people, raise their energy, take a kind of sovereignty over their energy? Because if we're not conscious of such things, we can, obviously unconsciously allow our frequency, our energy,
To mingle.
our attention to get distracted into things. The only way we can really remedy is by first and foremost taking a action of consciousness to ourselves. But that's a sort of a ambly kind of introduction. um, I want to ask you a bit about how you personally um, diagnose when your energy is being siphoned, um, and what is that process like for you, and what are your sort of steps that you take to prevent that when it's happening, and also to prevent it from arising in the first place.
Right. I like that because I'm a very sensitive soul, especially in terms of receptivity and energies in public places. I'm not exactly more of an introvert natured person. I'm very good with people, but because of my sensitive spiritual nature, I feel like I have seen myself in a lot of situations where I've met a lot of energy vampires. That's something that most people will identify with your energies being siphoned by people you don't know, or just, when you're in a public place, you just feel drained, or you're talking to a friend on a call, and then suddenly, you're just very, very tired, and you didn't feel that way before. So, coming across these situations, it's really given me a very good background on how to navigate that, because I remember being at one point where I didn't even know my energy is being siphoned. All I knew is that, oh, I'm tired, but I never really knew or could understand as to why I'm tired. So that tells me you need to have a very high level of awareness where, you're sitting, you have to sit with yourself, and sometimes you can feel a pull in a certain direction from a person or just people looking at you in a public place. And what you can do is, energetically, you can picture a white light expanding out of your third eye, which is very common, or your whole body. Just envision a very protective white layer, kind of like a bubble. So what happens is, energetically, when you do that, the energy cannot come in as it reflects back. The white light just throws the energy back. So it's kind of like a reflective mirror, you know, that you need to build around yourself. But that can really help with unwanted energies, because sometimes we do not wish to make that conversation or that communication, but it still happens through body language. Also, another thing that I've really noticed in my experience is eye contact. When you're outside, eye contact is the most common way of giving away your energy. That's why a lot of spiritual people, when they travel and stuff, they don't really make strong eye contact or gestures like that, because your eye is the window to your soul, right? So if you look at someone, you're looking into their soul and you're allowing them to look into yours. It sounds very frivolous, like, oh, it's just eye contact, it's fine. But the thing is, there's an energetical encounter that's happening behind it, which a lot of people really neglect or that don't take it seriously. But that is a way of giving away your energy. So what you can do is you can be mindful of who you choose to have that eye contact with. That's the measures we can take from our side. But I want to know your experience in a public setting and how you deal with unwanted attention, as we call it. Yeah.
Mm. Well, first and foremost, I avoid public settings. Yeah,
He only stays with me. Yeah.
that's the most obvious thing. If you're uncomfortable in such situations,
Yeah.
you need to find environments where you do feel comfortable. It's if you're continuously putting yourself in these situations which make you feel icky and drained, yes, there is an argument that you can build up tolerance by repeatedly stressing yourself in that sort of way, but um, sometimes you do have to protect yourself by just removing yourself from that environment. So that's
Yeah.
perhaps an initial kind of aspect, and I will avoid those situations in the first place. But if I am in such a situation, um, you mentioned the eye contact aspect. I'm someone who I do tend to instinctively, all my entire life, sort of avoid eye contact or um, avoid eye contact with unnecessary people.
Strangers.
Or
Yeah.
if there is an eye contact, for me it's like it's not fully conscious. There'll be a quick glance, but then I won't linger in that
No.
sort of exchange. And some people might look at that as a kind of a spectrum kind of trait. It is a spectrum trait, of course, but there is a
I
kind
think
of
it's more protective.
there is a
Yeah.
wisdom there because
There's wisdom behind that. Yeah.
when you are locked in a gaze with someone, there is a deep exchange of consciousness there. You're both holding each other as the object of one's awareness.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, you're the object of my attention, you're looking at me, I'm the object of your attention.
Yeah.
So, and such a deep and intimate thing should not be
Done with just
exchanged
anyone.
frivolously
Yeah.
with anyone,
Yep.
um, because you do not know the intentions or the processes that are going on behind someone's eyeballs.
Yeah, that's true.
With time and experience, you can cultivate this ability to discern the mental life of someone who is looking at you, the intention behind their gaze. You can tell perhaps if they have ill intent or they're deceptive
Malicious.
or perhaps they're nice, perhaps they're
Yeah.
kind, perhaps they have this warmth, this childlike wonder that sort of radiates from them. These are all things that you can pick up by reading someone's energy.
Yeah.
Though of course, you have to understand that when you're in a public setting, take like an airport for example, you're going to be mingling with a wide spectrum of different energies, and you can't control the energies that you're going to be
No.
interacting with. So I would say for someone who is, I myself, I'm quite introverted. I'm quite in my own bubble. You know, I don't engage needlessly. I'm not a small talker. I don't.
You're a
Nothing.
deep talker.
Yeah, obviously. As people who, oh, my little microphone keeps shutting off.
Um,
But
you can take mine.
is it still on?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's on now. But
Okay.
apologies for that little interruption. I'll try and notice if it shuts off again. But yeah, it's just you know, speaking is energy. Yeah, yeah,
We'll share
yeah,
one.
yeah. We will. Okay. Yeah, speaking is energy. Your attention is energy, and you have to really take that seriously into account when you're in public situations, when you're surrounding yourself with particular people. Um, you should be conscious as well of what you're listening to. Um, because when you're listening to someone, you are taking in their consciousness. It's entering into you. So this can range from your friends who you surround yourself with to the things that you're scrolling through on Instagram. Um, Many people are unconsciously conditioning their own consciousness. For example, if you're scrolling through Instagram, you're consuming content that is fearful in nature, scary, presenting you sort of these very emotionally driven and stimulating content. You're feeding that into your conscious system, so you're priming your consciousness to build its reality model around those inputs. You know,
You are what you consume.
you
So,
are, yeah, you are what you consume. There's another saying where you're like you are the summation of your like five closest friends,
oh yeah, I love that quote. Yeah.
which is so you have to take serious account of the consciousnesses that you are surrounding yourself with, the environment, and whether that environment is supporting your growth or whether it is
Totally.
extracting, whether it's pushing you off the path into deviations and whatnot. So yeah. So I guess sort of I want to sort of take us into um, away from this sort of a small scale sort of like specific events, more to like a wider view of someone's spiritual development. Like,
Right.
how do they, as a skill, a kind of muscle, know when they are in the presence of, say, energy vampires or people who have ill intention for them? Like, how do they develop that spiritual discernment?
Um, I feel like to properly distinguish if you are with the energy vampire, it'll be very easy because the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to start feeling very, very groggy. You're going to start feeling very, very lethargic and tired. And the quickest way to know that is not just you feeling that way, but it's happening to you, is that you need to understand the switch. So there'll always be this form of significant switch. Sorry. Yeah, so you could be feeling very energetic or normal, or let's say just happy, okay? That's your baseline emotion, right? But you come in contact with a specific person, and that's when it drops. So you have to be really aware of how you are feeling at all times. Your best way of protection is you. No one or nothing or no tool can protect you in the way that you can. So in order to do that, you have to build like a very conscious level of knowing how you feel at all times, and that requires attention to yourself. It requires to check in with yourself often and go like, oh hey, how do I feel right now? How does this conversation make me feel? How does this place make me feel? Do I feel like I have eyes on me? You have to keep having conversations with yourself. Does that make any sense? Like you have to be in tune with your nature, more in tune than the other person, because the most important person is you, because you're going to take care of yourself. That's your job. That's our role. And sometimes people forget to take care of themselves. That's when the problem starts. It's not that you aren't protected, because protection isn't just one layered thing. Protection can be multidimensional, in a sense, like you have spirit guides to protect you, you have your ancestors, you have your spirit team, that's your higher self. There's a whole different level of protection in the ether, in the astral. But because you are in this body right now, in this situation, you also need to develop a sense of protection. But certain things that I find help people quite a bit, especially me, is crystals. Crystals are the absolute best talisman for protection. Look at these. Show them. Show them. Yeah. You see these? These.
Might be quite blurry in the image.
Yeah, it's a little blurry, but this is a lapis lazuli, and this
A bloodstone.
is a bloodstone. Let me just show them. Yeah. Yeah.
There we go.
Against my hand. Yeah. So these are very, very good talismans. In the olden times, people used to use stones as talismans all the time because it's an extra layer of protection. The frequency is so high that anything that is not on that level of vibration cannot enter your field. Any person, any energy that has ill intentions with you will not be able to penetrate your aura. If you have a strong aura, you do not have to worry about no matter how bad the energy is or no matter how many people are trying to send you some bad energy because your aura is strong. Now, how do you make your aura strong? Well, if you're authentic, if you're in tune with your own body, you're feeling all the time, you're happier, you focus on yourself, you gossip less, you're more focused on your life, what you want to do, your goals. That's an indication of a strong aura, you know and but most people struggle with that because of course it's a journey, right? That just doesn't happen overnight. That's when we recommend stones, because it's not that the stone is doing all the work, but it is a very good tool to use, and we have them, so why not just use them? So I prefer stones quite a bit. So usually what I do is, I even recommended this to one of my friends. You can take a piece of black tourmaline. That is a very nice protective stone, and just keep that in your bag or wear it around your neck, and that will eliminate any chances of someone even trying to steal your energy. It has this very beautiful repelling effect. It's like an energetical slap. It just slaps the energy, unwanted energy, away from you. So yeah, if you do try that, definitely let us know if that works for you. But it works for a lot of people, and it could prove to be really helpful.
Mm.
But you tell me your experience with stones as mediums of spiritual protection.
Yeah, no, that's very important sort of
Yeah.
thread to go down. Um, I mean, I've been sort of wearing stones for a number of months now. Different varieties, as well rings as well, based on the sort of the demands of the situation.
Yeah.
Different stones are associated with different properties, obviously. Different chakra points in the body. Um, Different kind of faculties of spiritual insight and intuition. So it's like one needs to consider, which stone is right for me, and as well, for what situation. Um, if, for example, if I'm going to be particularly sort of immersed amongst, a lot of unfamiliar, potentially, you know, dangerous energies, I would tend to wear a black diamond
Yeah.
stone on my finger, because that is a stone that is remarked for its sort of energetical protection capacities as well as mystical intuition. It's a very beautiful kind of stone, and I'll tend to wear that. 4 days where I don't require that sort of level of protection, I'll just wear a garnet, as
Yeah.
that is
Red garnet.
yeah, a red garnet. I tend to wear this bloodstone a lot recently. It's something that is very
Potent.
potent. I've grown quite, I wouldn't say attached to it. I'm reverent for it.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very hard stone. It's a warrior stone. It's a stone that conveys strength, vitality, energy, physical restoration. It's a beautiful piece as well. The colours. Before that, I was wearing a labradorite, which was more of an astral kind of stone. It's more renowned for ET connections and your third eye, and I would use it particularly for meditation, sleep meditation. It would seem to enhance my dream activity a lot whilst I was wearing it. Before that, I was wearing a small little moldavite, which
Yeah.
is
Oh,
a
that's a good
stone.
one.
Yeah, that was my entry point. Was a little small, nugget
Moldavite. Yeah.
nugget of moldavite, which was a very interesting experience. I remember one time I told you in
Yeah.
particular how I'd taken like LSD, and I tried looking at the moldavite, and it became very very potent. It was causing a sort of this multi-sensory shift within my awareness, which you know some people may be able to pick up on that in the sober general waking consciousness, but they're naturally sensitive souls. Some people, such as
Take
perhaps
time.
myself, if they're in a psychedelic state where their consciousness is naturally the veils of perception are being lowered, so that they're more sensitive to subtle energetical forces and dynamics which we often are dissociated from. They can pick up on them. And crystals, it's an interesting
Beautiful.
experiment for people. They have access to psychedelic compounds or cannabis or something like that to meditate with the crystal
Yeah.
whilst in that state of consciousness. If that's something particularly if people experience a kind of blockage in their normal waking consciousness. They feel the crystal, but they can't quite feel it. It's still just a pretty little stone for them. Sometimes, you need that sort of experiential push towards, feeling those deeper, subtle, more potent energies within reality. It's a similar way to how some people they listen to music whilst high, and they can just feel the music more. Some people, they require being quote unquote high in order to feel the energy of the stone more. This is something particularly for myself, as someone who, I'm perhaps not as sensitive as other people to the energies of these stones. I require more time, but in that sort of journey, a way of sort of unveiling the power of stones, was through a psychedelic initiation kind of, and feeling the stone whilst on a psychedelic. And so yeah, that was a little thing that sort of was channeled here
Yeah.
regarding my sort of experience with stones and as well as psychedelics, I suppose. But I think to come round to sort of a more general conclusion on the topic of spiritual protection, stones, different methods that people can implement into their lives to cultivate this capacity for protecting their energy. Um, I think we should sort of conclude um, to really sort of provide some advice to people when they first sort of like recognize that they're in a compromised situation, perhaps if with a loved one or a friend or someone who they're realizing is not good for them. How do they respond to that? How can they distance themselves? How can they um, that's an important thing because people
Yeah.
come in and out of people's lives, friendships in particular, and it can be quite difficult for people
Bear with
to deal with the realization that, oh, this person who I thought was my friend is actually not good for my energy. But they feel this kind of attachment. They feel this kind of like, well, I can't just throw them away or discard them. How can they deal with that situation?
Right. Um, I feel like if you're in a situation like that, it's very common, happens to the best of us. It is painful. I'll tell you that. I've been there. But what you can do is, in that situation, you have to learn how to value yourself above anything else. Because if you don't feel good, if your one human lifetime experience is being condensed by this energy that isn't good for you, it's a hard truth, but it's better if you swallow the pill. It is hard, but sometimes in life we are required to do hard things, and it's a good skill to develop. I'm not the kind of person who would continue staying in a friendship or anything really, any relationship, if I don't feel safe with that person, or if I don't feel love with that person, or that sense of just peace. You want to surround yourself with peace because what you're surrounding yourself with always amplifies. So if you surround yourself with a person that has an energy or an intention to make you feel bad, you will enhance that and you will keep attracting that. So you really have to sit down with yourself, question yourself, hey, am I looking to experience peace? Then you know the route to take. It's difficult, but it will bring you, I promise you, it will bring you peace. But if you're in a very, very tricky situation and you are still attached to that person, which can be difficult, what you want to do is you want to, if you have a rose quartz, you can work with a rose quartz that has the energy of love and compassion for yourself and the other person, right? Or you can envision a pink light. So, a pink ray of light, the pink ray of divine light, is known for love and compassion, and that same light, the same frequency, dwells within the rose quartz as well. But what you can do is you can visualize it in your third eye or your mind's eye, okay, and envision pink light coming from out of your heart to the other person. So it's like an energy bubble where you're sending them a higher energy so they can level up. So that will work only to a certain extent because you're the person doing that work. They don't have that capacity to do that on their own. So if you're willing to put in that work every single time you want to talk to that person, because you know they're not there, so you're going to have to physically pick up their frequency to match yours. If that's something you're into, this is the route. But if you're not into something like that and you would just prefer people on your own vibration, your own resonance, I would definitely suggest just being by yourself for a little while. Let the right people come to you. And as we call it in the spiritual community, it's soul family. You will attract people with resonance. But if you cling on to non resonance or lower resonances, you will never reach your desired resonance. Or, in simpler terms, wavelength. That's something that people understand a lot easier. You want to find someone on your wavelength. Do not compromise in relationships or friendships or anything because you have one life, literally. You want to spend it with peace, love, happiness, and laughter. If they're not making you laugh, go. I don't care if it's a friendship, a relationship, a parental thing, whatever. Okay? You just have to remember to have a good time on planet Earth. That's the point. Literally, that's the message. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a beautiful place to really conclude here with
Yeah.
the hammering home that point
Yeah.
that you need to take care of yourself ultimately, and you are the person who is most closely um, intimate with the issues you are experiencing. You know them most intimately, um, and therefore it is up to us to address them ourselves. Um, Many people don't want to address their own problems. They want to find solutions from other people. They want people to tell them how to do it. But the honest truth is that you need to have the maturity and the courage to take an honest and hard look at the situation that is confronting you and to make the solution yourself. Many people aren't taught this. Many people aren't really told this honest truth. They want to find quick solutions, quick fixes. They don't want to think. They don't want to expend the effort, the energy in order to cultivate this for themselves. But that's just a reflection of the culture that we live in, where these more difficult and hard hitting lessons are often steered away from because they're more triggering. They're not telling people the easy solutions.
No.
Um, this if life was completely easy, it wouldn't be engaging. It wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be interesting. We have these challenges because we learn something about ourselves through engaging with them. And spiritual protection. It's not something that it's these negative energies. They aren't there to harm us. They're there to allow us to grow. They're the friction that allows us to understand ourselves to a deeper level. It's like we're building a muscle. You have to first stress the muscle for the muscle to then grow and build against that resistance. You require that resistance, and I think we should keep that sort of enlightened perspective when we're considering this. It's not that the world is scary and terrifying. It's it's more and it's filled with people who want to take your energies away and all this sort of stuff. It's, yeah, that sort of attitude of fear, it's not going to awaken you. It's going to keep you trapped in this fight or flight state. The point of these negative entities are to bring out of you your authentic light, your authentic strength, your authentic courage. They are the opportunities, ultimately, I feel.
Yeah.
And I guess I will leave that at that, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for tuning in. Hope that's been interesting, insightful. Um, and yeah,
Yeah, we'll be back again.
we'll be back again. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye bye. There we go.